What is up, Poker Brandon here, and this is going to be session 17. I have not posted in a while, shorts, maybe a few. My last session vlog was definitely a long time ago. Pretty much the casino I was at told me I had to stop filming, so I stopped. But let's jump right into it. You know, this is a poker channel and I want to talk about poker. So first hand of the session, I have ace 5 suited in the small blind. No jack opens to 20. Low jack, hijack, cutoff, and button all call to 20. That made the pot $105 when I look down at ace 5 of hearts. A lot of people say ace 5 of hearts is the computer hand, and let me just break down what I think about it. So in GTO Wizard, this is not the exact setting, but in the GTO spot that I looked up here, this is a big blind versus a button open after the small blind makes the call. So on this graph, this is basically a grid for what the computer would see as plus EV, meaning a profitable decision to make with all the hands you can have in poker in this exact spot where the big blind has a decision to make. Now, I just want to relate it to where I'm at here in the small blind in this hand. In this hand, I'm in the small blind. I have ace 5 suited, and there are 5 other opponents in the hand after an open. So if you look at ace 5 suited versus 2 players, you can see that at the top right hand corner there, you can see ace 5 suited is highlighted about probably 75% red. And what that means is GTO Wizard in this spot likes to raise with ace 5 suited in this spot. And if you look at the very top right in the black, very top right hand corner, it says raise to 28. So what you can take from this graph is with ace 5 suited, the computer likes to recommend a raise about 75 to 80% of the time. And on top of that, when the pot, whatever the pot is, when it comes down to you, the raise size is about 3.5 times the pot. So even though this is not exactly the exact situation that I'm in as far as this GTO graph here on the left, it is just a little baseline reference point I want to show why I did what I did in this spot right here. So in the spot that I'm in, I have ace 5 suited in the small blind, but I'm facing 5 different opponents, 1 of them who opened, 4 of them who called. I think what I could take from this graph and kind of relate it is that ace 5 suited should be a raise more so than it is a call, but on top of that, it should really never be a fold. And what I do is I go ahead and 3-bet to 200. The pot was 105, so I didn't exactly raise it to 350, but I felt like 200 was just the right size to get me 1v1 with one opponent. Surprisingly, I thought I was going to go 1v1 with the no jack, but I ended up going 1v1 with the hijack, who only had $100 behind. So, I mean, I figure he should have just put that $100 in with pre-flop, but he didn't. So we go to a flop and go ahead and watch the action.
Set.
So my uncle ended up having pocket queens, and in the hijack there, I think that was extremely surprising. It was surprising to me that he didn't shove it pre-flop with any hand, but then to just call and see the flop with pocket queens, it was even more surprising. But I'm happy for the outcome. On the flop, it was queen 10 king. I was gonna put in my stack. He saw me reach for my chips, and he ended up putting his stack in faster than I put in mine. Didn't matter. I was never folding when I see a flush draw and a gut shot on the flop. So we put the money in, and he was a little bit upset to see that I had turned a straight. I think the whole table was surprised to see that I had ace 5 there, except for one other player who saw my hand, and someone pointed out that he had also tried to bluff with ace 5 suited. and he kind of like, they kind of had like some kind of laugh about it. And I guess, you know, I think that player also was somewhat of a GTO player. But I mean, that's why I'm making this video, and I'm trying to talk about my strategy just to kind of get the comments going and see what other people do, how, you know, rate my play, comment on my play, tell me how bad I am, how good I am. It doesn't matter to me. I just like the interactions and the thinking components that we have on YouTube. Don't fear that you're gonna offend me by commenting any trash talk or anything. I don't really get offended. If you ask me about how he played it, I would say he played it wrong. Technically, there is no right or wrong way to play poker, but I would say he played it wrong in the sense that if you're trying to make money in poker with pocket queens, you want to really be raising, and the reason you want to be raising is because you want to isolate one other player. I don't think you ever want to go 5 or 6 ways with a hand as strong as pocket queens. You want to isolate, you want to increase your chances of winning on any flop, and you can do that by isolating pre-flop with a 3-bet or a 4-bet. But I mean, so I won that hand, and that was the first hand I played and showed, I believe, at this session. And then that's going to give a little bit of information to the players at the table on how I play. So keep that in mind as you're watching, and let's move on to the next hand. So about 10 minutes later, if you look up at the top middle area, it says 4:01 p.m. It's about 10 minutes later, I get Queen Jack suited in the small blind. There's a hijack limp, a button open to 30. And if you go ahead and look at that GTO wizard chart I pulled up, Queen Jack suited is highlighted all red. So what that means is, according to GTO wizard, the computer would say that it is most profitable to 3-bet this hand in the small blind when there is a button open. This is not accounting for the hijack limp, but nevertheless, it plays about the same. Now, keep in mind that when a button opens, the computer assumes that the opener is a little bit lighter. Here's an example of when a UTG player opens, and I'm in the exact same spot in the small blind. You can see that Queen Jack suited is a 100% fold versus a UTG player because the computer assumes that a UTG open is always stronger. So in this hand, I 3-bet to 100. It's about 3 point something, the pot, and they just fold, and I take it down. So about another 10 minutes goes by. There's a post to $5, and I am in the no jack, and I go ahead and open this pot up to 45. Low jack new player is going to call the 45, and we are going to go 1v1 to a 4 jack 10 flop. Now, I just want to make a side note for my sizing pre-flop when I go to 45. That is because the pot is already $25 to win. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner, I write profit pot or pro pot, meaning that that is the profit that I could take if everybody folds. That's kind of how I think about poker when I'm in and I'm playing. So I just want to throw that out there. Anyway, we go 1v1 to a 4 jack 10 flop, and I think the most efficient way to extract money here is to check, whereas GTO, I think, would always bet this. Low jack checks behind, and then I see a 10 on the turn, a beautiful 10. I only lose 2 quads here, and I think it's mandatory to always put in a bet. Now, every opponent will be different for my sizing, but because I don't know how this player plays, I think I just want to string him in with a very small $25 bet. That is less than 25% of the pot. I think that almost every hand in poker should call this, but low jack raises me. And go ahead and watch what happens.
Okay, okay, doggy. Enjoyed it. Okay. All in. All in on the top.
Now, before you go ahead and see the river, I want you to understand why I did what I did here. So after I got raised, on that turn. I think that there's going to be a lot of tens in his range if he's doing that for value. But a lot of the time, I feel like a player might just be raising because they're bluffing because I checked the flop and then I put out a tiny bet on the turn. Tiny bets usually induce players to raise, I feel. So when I get raised, I don't necessarily assume that my opponent has a 10. I'm praying he has a 10. And if he has a 10, he's really never going to fold if I put in a raise. So I felt like the most profitable way to play this would be to re-raise, and I re-raise the minimum. I go to 125 and I make sure to announce the raise to the dealer so that he knows I'm not just calling. I don't want any accidental situation where the dealer thinks I'm just calling and then maybe the river comes out and it messes up the hand. So I announce raise. I put in $50 more. That is the minimum. And I think that this will induce even like the most weirdest bluff from an opponent, because keep in mind, if an opponent is bluffing me in this spot, he thinks I'm stabbing with the light hand, and then he raises me and then I re-raise him with another tiny raise. I think a lot of the time that will induce even like the most low equity gut shot to re-jam on you because they just feel like you are weak. I felt like a call would be a little bit stronger than a raise in that situation that I was in. So that's why I ended up re-popping it to the minimum. And I'm just ecstatic when I hear him announce all in.
Open. No.
So my hand is going to be good versus Queen 10 of diamonds. Now 4:17 p.m. next hand. 4 limps to me. I have ace jack offsuit. I open to 55. I've been pretty quiet at the table, and UTG player is going to try to get me to speak.
See? The word hello is kind of scared me. Hello! I think he scared me out of everybody.
Small blind is going to call the 55, and then UTG player who was talking is going to limp call the 55. We go 3 ways to a flop. Flop is going to be 4-2 king of diamonds, and small blind is going to check. UTG is going to check, and then action is going to be on me on the button with ace high. Now, I want to bring in a graph here, and this graph is not exactly accurate, but this is a situation where a button 3 bets, cutoff calls, and they go to a flop. Now, if you look at the far left side, it says ace, king, queen, all the way down to a 2. This is the flop high card. So if the flop is a high card ace, you can see that graph right next to it shows that the red means you c-bet and the green means you check. Now, if you look at the king high boards right below the ace, that is a 98.5% c-bet flop. So in this circumstance, even though it's not exactly the same, I'm on the button with ace jack offsuit. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to play my range, and my range wants to bet. So I bet out $40. Reason for my sizing is that on a king high board, usually my range, even though I'm not exactly in a 3-bet pot, my range wants to bet for a small size. I opt for about a 25% sizing, and I get a call from UTG the talker. 9 comes on the turn, and UTG is going to check again. Now, here's where I have to decide if I want to bluff or give up, and I just choose to give up, and the UTG is going to have some words about it. 7 of spades is going to hit the river, and action is on UTG.
What about you? I don't know why he jacked. He was betting. Scared me now.
So UTG is going to give out a speech and then bet $80. I think this is always just a king or better. I don't think it's ever a bluff, and I'm going to lose, and it's okay. Next hand, about 2 minutes later, there's a limp to me, a hijack open to 25, and I'm in the cutoff with 3-4 suited. I want to see a flop. I can flop pretty good, and I'm in position. So we go 3 ways to a jack 5 queen flop. Flop a flush draw, low jack checks, hijack the aggressor. is going to check, which I think is a mistake, and I will take my free card. So I check it, and we go to a turn. Turn is going to be a 3. I make a pair, low jack checks, and hijack is going to bet 15. It's going to be a very tiny bet. I'm never folding here. I might raise, but in this circumstance, I'm just going to call, and I want to see if I'm going to hit my equity. Low jack comes along as well. 10 of clubs is going to hit the river, and this is just not really a good hand for me to have. I just have a pair of 3s facing 2 opponents. Now, in this circumstance, I got to decide whether or not I want to bluff at it. I don't think it's always necessary to try to win every single pot. I know some players think that you should always try to win every pot. I don't think so. Now, next hand about 5:19 p.m., 3 limps to me. Profit to win is about 25. When I look down at King Queen offsuit, I open to $65. Only the small blind, weirdly enough, is going to call. Limpers get out of the way, and flop is 9-10 jack. Small blind is the opponent who was speaking a lot in that hand earlier that we had. In this hand, he's just pretty quiet. He did have a big stack, bigger than mine at the table. He had about 2,000 in front of him, and he took a long time to see this flop and check, but he ends up checking, and now I just got to figure out whether or not I want to bet this. Now, because I want to get money in the pot versus his giant stack, I feel like I need to size up my betting here, but I don't want to go too big. I figure half pot would be enough to get him to call. But I was wrong. He just snap folds, and I unfortunately don't get any value for my flopped straight. So next hand is going to be consecutive. Consecutive hands back to back when you're opening and playing, they have a psychological effect. You got to keep in mind that you are playing consecutive hands when you do. I open a 15. Unfortunately, we go 5 ways to a 3-4-4 flop. I decide to play this very carefully, and reason being is because when you're going 5 or 6 ways, there's a very high likelihood that if you don't smack the nuts on the flop, you really don't have the nuts. Luckily, we check this all the way down to a river, and now when it checks to me, I feel like a 4 would always try to get value here. There is a chance that there is a 4 behind me when I put out this value bet of 75. But I take the risk. I figure a 4 might raise, a straight might raise. With this size, I'm trying to isolate a jack to call me. Low jack calls and a UTG calls, and guess what? They both hit a jack, and they both thought they were good. And I'm gonna go ahead and at least pull out another 150 bucks from this board. My advice for multi-way pots is to be careful. Now, a couple minutes later, this is not consecutive, but when I opened this hand here, I had already opened 2 other hands prior, so this is the 3rd hand in a row that I opened. When you're opening a lot, you're going to get 3 bet more. Keep that in mind. It doesn't always mean that your opponent has a really strong hand. But in this circumstance, the player who 3 bet me, he was new, and all he saw was he saw me open 3 hands in a row, and I think that's all the information he has on me when we go heads up to a 3-bet pot to a ace 6-8 flop. So you can see big blind up on top.
75.
This is him looking at this flop, and he bets $75. Now, as I play poker, I do like to watch my opponents. I think live reads are very important. A lot of players don't really look around at the faces of their opponents. I do. And when I was looking at big blind here, he looked very, very curious about me. And I could tell when he put out his bet, he was watching me very carefully, and I felt like that was a sign of weakness. I felt like if he had a strong hand, he wouldn't need to necessarily look at me so closely. Queen comes on the turn, and big blind thinks about it right there. You can see him thinking, just waiting, not really moving. And there he goes. He throws out 100. So after he fires on the turn here, it feels like I'm running into a bigger ace. I want to put you in the situation that I was in. So in this spot, I was watching my opponent. He picks up some chips, and he's looking at me. And I have sunglasses on and a hat, so you can't really see my eyes, but he was watching me very carefully right here. And he was playing with his chips, and I was watching him. and then he stops playing with his chips after looking at me for a while. Then he grabs his phone, and then he does nothing on his phone. And then he puts his phone back down, and then he puts his hands in his pockets or on his side, and he acts like very calm. Now, these were 3 different emotions he went through. He went through like fidgety, and then he went to, I'm gonna grab my phone and forget about the hand, and then he went back to, I'm gonna mentally think about the hand again. All of these weird, different forms of behavior I feel like are anxiety. And because I felt like that live read was pretty accurate, I make the call, and I just felt like my ace was good here. And I told myself if I call this turn and he jams river, it's a bluff and I'm gonna have to call. But I'm gonna take my time. So river comes out, it's a 3 of spades. There's no flush possible, there's no straight possible, and the big blind is going to think and do this. You can hear me give out a when he does this, because I'm now like, I'm out of the tank, I'm out of my locked in, I guess you could say, poker face. And I'm just sort of relaxing now and just trying to really run through whether or not it is a bluff. And I'm just taking my time. I feel like I am gonna call this because I've put him on a bluff on the turn. But I'm just trying to take my time and look at him just a little bit more to see if I see any sort of live read that might give away that he has a strong hand. I look back at my hand one more time, make sure I have the ace so I didn't misread it, and go ahead and watch. You just count the short one. 75.
Show hand, please.
So after I put in the money, I'm never sure 100%, but I hear the words good call, and I'm happy to see that he had pocket tens and my read was correct. So we move on to the next hand. About 10 minutes later, I pick up 2 black aces after a hijack limp and a small blind check. Players ask me if I want to chop. Obviously not. This is why I don't like to chop all the time, because you can wake up with a big hand and get paid a big pot if you don't chop. So I don't chop. I open to 20. Hijack will call, and then small blind will call, and we go 3 ways to a jack, queen, jack flop. Small blind quickly checks. I don't mind a check here because if someone has a jack, they're going to bet it. And behind me, hijack bets pot. He bets 60. And then small blind calls, and I'm going to make a hero laydown right now. And I'm going to fold pocket aces, and I'm going to keep filming so you guys can see how much of a genius I am. So hijack, he was an old timer, I would say above 65 years old. And when he put in that big bet, usually old timers size their bets with how strong their hand is. It just always was a jack. He bet 100 on the turn after the 9 of heart hit, and then small blind checked it to him again. But here's where I see the bad news. He only had ace, queen. He sort of overplayed it, I feel, and he made me look like a real fool for folding pocket aces on the flop. So about 10 more minutes goes by, and I see ace 10 offsuit after 4 limps to me in the cutoff. I'm going to open this up to 40. It's a little bit smaller than what I would usually open to with a $30 profit to win. I might go to 50, 55. But I go to 40 because I just want to mix it up a little bit. This hand isn't too strong, and I felt like I was opening a lot, and now more players would call me. Actually, everybody folded that was on the table I was playing with. Only the UTG called and the button called. So we went 3 ways to a flop. Pot is going to be $145, and the flop was 10-9. I actually like this flop with my hand exactly because I have top pair, top kicker, whereas if an ace came, I would have top pair, middle kicker, and it wouldn't be as strong, I feel. I also like this flop better because it gives me showdown value with my 10, and I think that it is a lot sneakier for me to have a 10 here, top pair, rather than a face card. I feel like most players, when you're playing at a 5-5 game, they assume that you're raising with face cards, and they usually don't feel like you hit the board if there's no face cards on the flop. So hold on one second. I'm going to pause this. I want to talk about my sizing here when I go to $60. Obviously, you're going to see that button is going to snap jam on me. Let's talk about why I chose 60 as my sizing. So I showed you this graph before. There's a lot to explain here, but I'm just going to give you a basic little gist. This is a scenario where a button is given the option to c-bet a flop. So this is a button versus a cutoff open. The button 3-bet, cutoff check the flop, and then this is a graph showing you the size you should bet and how often you should bet as a button aggressor pre-flop. On the flop after it gets checked to you. So if you look on the left-hand side, it says A, K, Q, J, and that's basically ace, king, queen, jack, all the way down to a 2. What that means is that represents the high card on the flop. So in this circumstance, in the hand that I'm in right now, the high card is a 10. And if you look at the 10, it says that I should be betting approximately 50% to 33% of the pot, and I should be doing that about 80 to 75% of the time. So whether you believe in GTO or not, GTO is basically means that it is the most profitable way to play the hand. You don't have to believe it. There's a lot of truth to it, but so that's why I bet 60. And then you'll see that the player who jammed on me really didn't even believe that I had the 10 because watch the hand.
Call.
So my opponent tables ace of diamonds, 8 of clubs. So, I mean, he had like he had a backdoor and one over to what I believe he might have thought he had one over, but that was just a pure, I think you're bluffing, I'm going to jam on you. And he did it, but he was wrong. And I think in that spot, when he jams 200 over your 60, you should always call with ace 10 there. Next hand, I have jack 8 suited. There is a limp, and I open to 15 because there's only one limp. But we end up going 6 ways to a flop, which is pretty normal at these 5-5, 100 big blind tables. Flop is king 9-5, and we check it all the way around. I really want to see another card holding a flush draw and a couple back doors. Small blind bets 30. But in these multi-way pots, you got to be careful not to get involved too much because somebody can always flop the extreme nuts. In this case, there was a small blind bet of 30. I figure I shouldn't raise with a jack 8. It's not the nut flush draw. I should just call. So far, a couple players folded out of the way, so hopefully I can just get heads up with one player. But the worst case scenario happens. Well, I suppose it's not the worst case, but I call the 30, and then there's a raise behind me. The cutoff raises to 150, and then when the small blind calls there, I just have to fold. I'm not trying to gamble here. I'm not trying to pay for a flush draw that may not even be good. I could be crushed by a hand like ace 10 of diamonds. So I just let it go. Even ace 5 of diamonds with a pair. Ace queen of diamonds, believe it or not, could be in here somewhere. So I let these players duke it out, and I keep filming for the vlog just to show whether or not I made a good laydown. So the next card is a 4 of hearts, and it checks to the cutoff, who ends up betting 350. At this point, I'm super happy that I folded because I did not want to play for a $500 investment in a flush draw that may not be good. So I'm happy that I didn't even call that raise on the flop. Small blind ends up thinking about this, and I think if I was in the small blind with this hand, I still fold this hand because it's just a flush draw that may not be good.
I totally understand.
And I think that
I wouldn't say
you always have to let this hand go if you have just a flush draw here. Also, if you're hearing a lot of background noise right now, it's because I'm trying to finish the audio for this vlog, and I'm filming inside of a In-N-Out as I'm on lunch. Small blind ends up going all in and cutoff snap calls. River is a 10 of hearts, and the cutoff had a set, and the small blind did indeed have the nut flush draw. So I was drawing very slim. Anyway, this is session 17. I was in for $600 playing at the Gardens. I was out for $2,200. Thank you for watching on Poker Brandon. I'm out.